They're ugly. Got 2 out of the trailer when I first moved there. 2 possums and a snake.
That's a weird trio. But possums you don't like because they're ugly. That's fine. I hope you like me. But
you're not ugly.
But for the snakes, I get it because they're kind of scary.
They're
Which brings us to what I'll be talking about tonight is fear. I know Halloween's over, but it didn't really give me the idea for this. Just kind of happened to me. Fear. This will be part 1. I don't know how many parts it'll be. It was just very long last night. I'll try to keep it a little bit shorter tonight. But what is fear? What is fear?
When you're scared of something.
You're scared of something. Okay. Pretty good. What is fear?
Opposite of faith.
Yeah, could be. So let's look at just the standard definition of fear. Fear is the most general term that implies anxiety and usually loss of courage. You don't want to do something, so you stop. Fear of the unknown dread usually adds the idea of intense reluctance to face or meet a person or situation that suggests aversion as well as anxiety. Why don't some people sing? Why don't some people, in high school is a big one, somebody wants to fight you and you don't fight them back. Why? Because you're afraid you're going to lose, be embarrassed in front of people. You just have the situation itself will suggest you don't want to do it and give you anxiety. It's meeting with dread, and fright implies a shock of a sudden, startling fear. So somebody sneaks up on you and goes, "Wow, you weren't expecting that." So it puts a shock impulse of fear. So what are you afraid of? We already went over 1. What are you afraid of? Spiders. Got some spider people. Snakes, okay. What did you say?
Raccoons.
Little harmless animals, clowns, okay. Unknown, yeah. What are you afraid of? You're afraid of singing. What are you afraid of? Yeah? Losing your loss. Loss, that's a good one. Lots of different things to be afraid of. For example, something to be afraid of. What's the number 1 fear recorded in America? Phobia. Public speaking. What I'm doing now. It's not scary to me. I don't know. I'm one of the 30%, I guess. But it's called glossophobia. Glossophobia. Just getting up and singing, getting up and talking in front of people. Because some people can be embarrassed. I don't get embarrassed very easily, so. What about technical difficulties? Some people are afraid of that. If I had glossophobia, I would be panicking right now. But I don't, so I'm going to have to improvise it out. Who here is afraid of public speaking? Other than Jenny? Tree, yeah. If Ariel, where's Ariel? She is. She's afraid of just speaking.
Let me unplug and plug it again.
Alright.
Oh, your thing.
Oh yeah, unplug those. There we go.
Okay.
If we leave the flash drives in for some reason, it doesn't let you turn it. What about this one? This one gets me. I do not like looking over high stuff. You know, you look over, like you're on a hotel balcony and you're way up there, like 20, 30 something floor, and you look over and you're like stomach sucks up a little bit. Yeah. And there are people that do this for fun. They're normally Russian or Ukrainian because those people are crazy. But yeah, that is. What's this called?
It's not hydrophobia.
It's not hydrophobia. Yeah,
It's
I just think that too.
Claustrophobia.
Acrophobia. Acrophobia. Afraid of being an acrobat. What about this one?
That's claustrophobia. That's claustrophobia right there.
Yeah. Y'all ever went in a cave and had to squeeze through a real tight spot?
Yes.
Yeah. Me too. I don't really have this one, thank goodness. But some people are afraid of the MRI machines and stuff. Yeah, just there are certain things to be afraid of. Where does all this fear come from? Has anything bad ever happened to you while you were high up? You ever fallen from something really high and died? No, none of us have, or you wouldn't be here. Have you ever gotten stuck to the point where somebody had to pull you out of stuff and it was a big deal and it freaked you out?
Yes.
Some people might have. Do you have claustrophobia because of it?
Yes.
Yeah, some people. What about speaking in public? Have you ever had to speak in public and got embarrassed and that's why you are? Or singing and you got made fun of and that's why you are? Sometimes, right? But sometimes you're afraid of things that don't really do anything. None of us in here have been bitten by rattlesnakes, I don't think. None of us in here have ever been bitten by spiders that have caused poisonous effects to us, to lose a lot of bad stuff. Not everybody. None of us have ever been bitten by a spider that kills snakes. Which one of those is your friend? You don't like spiders or snakes, but spider kills snakes. Is he your friend now? Enemy of my enemy and whatnot?
Can't help it, that's the way I am.
But it all comes from three things, like you said. You can't help it sometimes. Why? There's irrational fear, and that occurs when there's a real imminent threat. There's a bear charging me. I'm afraid. It's a rational fear because the bear could maul you, could tear you up. There's a primal fear. It's defined as an innate fear that is programmed into our brains. Why does being up really high make you scared? Why does getting stuck make you scared? Because if you get stuck, you could die. If you fall, you could die. It's just in your head, like, oh, I could die right now. I'm not safe. And then there's irrational fears. Like the ones that don't make any sense and can vary greatly from person to person, like singing, public speaking. You have a fear people are going to make fun of you, even though they're not. Or if they do, oh well, who are those people to make fun of you? Clowns. No reason to be afraid of clowns. There's different kind of things, and everybody has their own that ticks. But where does all knowledge, wisdom, and understanding begin? Please don't miss this.
Fear of God.
The fear of God. Which one does that fall under?
Well, maybe first and second.
First and second maybe, but it's a different kind of fear that is not really talked about much. The fear of God. The fear of God is where it all starts. How many people, so a lot of people will get saved when they're a child, for instance, and the example of getting saved is how we perceive it most of the time, what you mostly see in churches. You're in church, you've been going for a while, whatever, you learn Jesus, you learn about heaven, learn about hell. Most of the time what draws people to it isn't they're sitting back there and they just feel this overwhelming love and joy and peace pulling them to the altar to give it all. Most of the time they're scared. You're back there and you have a fear, you're like, something's wrong. I'm not where I need to be or what I need to be just yet. And you know the answer to that. That is kind of the fear of God. That's what's in that. So, biblical examples of fear that are a little bit different. Fear not, O land, be glad and rejoice, for the Lord will do great things. This is, don't be afraid. The lion hath roared, who will not fear? The Lord God hath spoken, who can but prophesy? And then the other one, and he said unto them, I am a Hebrew, and I fear the Lord, the God of heaven, which hath made the sea and the dry land. So fear not, who will not fear, and I fear. 3 different examples right there. So why do animals run from us? You go walking through the woods, you see a deer, it runs away. Why? Genesis 9. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that move upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hands they are delivered. So they fear us because we have a dominion over them, so to speak. They fear us because we have the power to kill them or hurt them or maim them. How did we get the covenant with God? Or anybody get a covenant with God? Levi particularly in this case. My covenant was with him of life and peace, and I gave them to him for the fear wherewith he feared me. Levi was afraid of God, so God gave him the covenant because he was afraid of him, and was afraid before my name. So they were afraid of God, is what got God's attention. They're like, they're afraid of me. How do we heal and grow? Ever thought of it like this? Heal and grow? But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in its wings. And ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. You shall grow because you are in fear of the Lord. Fear is what makes you come to church, because if you don't, God will be mad at you and bad things will happen. Fear is what makes you not sin, not because you love God a lot and you don't want to hurt his feelings, because you love God and you don't want God mad at you. It's more so than hurt his feelings. Why did Noah build the ark? By faith, Noah, being warned of God of things not yet seen as yet, moved with fear. He heard it from God, but fear is what made him get up and do something about it. Prepared an ark to saving of his house. So the fear of God comes in a few different flavors. Having therefore these promises, dearly beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God. That's where it is perfected. The more afraid you are, the more better you will serve God, the more perfect you will be made. Wherefore, my beloved, as ye have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. That he would grant unto us, that we being delivered out of the hand of our enemies, might serve him without fear. So now we're going a little bit differently. In holiness and righteousness before him all the days of our life. Fear of God, salvation with fear and trembling from our own, and then without fear. So, you fear God. Why is it important to fear God and worship him in righteousness and holiness without fear? Where is it lost? Where does it change it? So no fear of God. What about not having any fear of God? So the remarkable thing about God is that when you fear God, you fear nothing else. Because God made everything, and if you fear God, what can hurt you? What can come against you if God's on your side? Whereas if you do not fear God, you fear everything else, whether you know it or not, because you don't have that overall protection. You don't have that Creator looking down on you that you can turn to in faith to help you, protect you, and guide you. How many of you like Kanye? We have any Kanye-ites in here? Kanye disciples? Well, Kanye says, I am a God, so hurry up with my massage. In a French restaurant, hurry up with my croissants. What a wordsmith. What a brilliant genius. He's the voice of a generation. But what is that? It said, I am God. If you claim to be God, does that really show a fear of God? Well, so if they're not afraid of God, and they're afraid of everything else, then, how do I word this? Without the fear of God, what do you necessarily have? And why don't they fear God? Something that can just take out everything, give them everything, or take everything away. Why are they not afraid of that? What causes people to not fear God?
Unbelief.
What was that, Gary?
Unbelief.
So, in the words of Kanye elsewhere, Human beings in a mob, right? What's a mob to a king? What does a king care about a mob? What's a king to a god? But what is a god to a non-believer? You mess up the hierarchy, the cycle there, right? In Kanye's own words. This one is kind of deep when you think about it. Like, what's a king to God, but what is God to someone who doesn't believe in him, in this sense? So that is where they lose the fear of God. They lack of it from their non-belief. Jeremiah goes on a lot of awesome rants. If you've never read Jeremiah, he really doesn't like sinners, and when he goes on about them, he's pretty passionate. He's even kind of funny and mocking it a lot of times. So I'll read this quick. Hear now this, O foolish people. Off to a good start, calling everybody foolish people. And without understanding, because where does all understanding begin? So they don't have it. Which have eyes and see not, which have ears and hear not. For fear ye not me, saith the Lord. Are you not afraid of me? Will ye not tremble in my presence, which have placed the sand for the bound of the sea by a perpetual degree, that it cannot pass it? Think about it. On average, the sea, without force elsewhere, cannot pass sand. Why? Because it sinks into it. Sand. That's why all beaches have it. And though the waves therefore toss themselves, yet they cannot prevail. Though they roar, yet they cannot pass over it. But this people hath a revolting and rebellious heart. They are revolted and gone. Neither say they in their heart, let us now fear the Lord our God, that giveth rain both to the former and the latter in his season. He reserveth unto us the appointed weeks of the harvest. Your iniquities have turned away these things, and your sins have withholden good things from you. That is the first half of the rant. We'll get to the second half next week or something. What was it saying right here? Like, I have all this power, this undeniable power, and you do not fear me. Why? What do you think I'm going to do to you? What do you think is going to happen? You already called them foolish people. But in Romans, their throat is an open sepulchre, their tongues they have used deceit, the poison of asp is under their lips, whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Destruction and misery are in their ways, and the way of peace have they not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes. So if you're not afraid of God or what God can do to you, what? The quote said that they fear everything else. But the Bible more so says if they're not afraid of God, then they're not afraid to do all these things. If I did not believe there was a God up there to punish me for my wrongdoings, what would stop me from doing wrong? And that's the state of a lot of people now. They have no fear of God, so they claim a sort of godliness upon themselves, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. You kind of hear in Revelations. So if they think they're God, they're going to enact their godlike views upon you. And the more power they get, the more they reinforce themselves with the fact that they have these powers and abilities. And when we go along with that and reinforce their wrong ideas and beliefs and ideologies, we kind of prove this point into it. So maybe our fear needs to be checked a little bit too. So what about these? How's fear being used against us now? What about these people? Are we afraid of them? Terrorists? Do we fear terrorism? What's a terrorist? What is a terrorist? Anyone that causes fear. If I scare a kid, I'm a terrorist. I'll sneak up behind you and go, boo! And you're like, I'm a terrorist. Terrorism, right? It's an idea. It's great when you can declare war on ideas, because then anything you say is in that idea you can declare war on. Terrorist.
Is that the money?
What about these? Immigrants. Oh man, they're coming to our country in uncountable lines that you can't even count it. They're going to get here and wreck everything, start working for $2 an hour, and the government's going to give them all $500,000 each. Okay. Yeah, let's believe that one too.
I don't know our government.
Yeah, see, oh no, I'm kind of scared of it. It's very used against you. What about fanatics? one way or the other. What about these people? Not so much here. I don't imagine we're afraid of these, but what if they all have Biden hats on? Ooh, scare, or Bernie. Or Obama. What if they won't bring Obama back? Yeah, right. What about the government? Oh, the scary government, planning, plotting our demise, making silly decisions. What about homosexuals? Their agendas are everywhere. You can't even make a TV show or write a book unless you put them in it now. Scary. Scary, the power that they're getting, right? What about people who don't like the government? Oh no, there's even some gays in that one too. See that flag? Oh man. What about these people? Scary people that go into the government building and walk between the velvet ropes to take it over. It's just all a divide if you haven't gotten my point yet by showing all these different things. I can show you anything to make you afraid of it. I'll find something eventually by clicking through slides, snakes and spiders, no matter what it is. But once I find what that is, I can push it on who will react to it, on who will react from that fear. And if I throw 500 things at you, I've pretty much got everybody in America, and I can just keep pushing and pushing, keeping everybody confused. Am I afraid of this? No, I'm afraid of this. Oh, well, I'm afraid of this. And they're both happening right now all over the world, so on and so forth. So this comes from a book. I forgot the book's name. It's not biblical, so I didn't put it in here. But we're being fed a constant diet of fear. Everybody is today. Fear of terrorists, immigrants, people who are too religious, like us. People who are not religious enough, like everybody but us. No, I'm just kidding. But fear of Muslims, fear of extremists, fear of the government, fear of those who fear the government, the people who just don't like the government, or people who love the government. Those people are kind of scary. The list goes on, but the strategy is simple yet very effective. And this book was written in like 90s or something. The best way to control the populace is through fear and discord. Fear makes people stupid. You're not stupid, but the things you're afraid of are what make you stupid. Confound them, distract them with mindless news, chatter, and entertainment. Pit them against one another by turning minor disagreements into major skirmishes. And tie them up in knots over matters lacking in national significance. No immigrants are going to take over America like that. There might, but it's going to take a lot more than crossing a border with a whole bunch of you, I promise. And if anybody wanted it to stop, they would not get in, believe me. The gays aren't going to take over and come breed in. They're going to do it if you let them do it slowly and sneakily, but they're not going to come with a big rainbow army and with tanks and guns. Okay? But the little ideas can make you fear of what they can do. And then when I have to say you have to put them in a TV show or a book, you're more afraid because look at the power they already have. But the power is, okay, don't watch a movie or read books with gays in it, and now the power's gone. Now it's out of here. More importantly, divide the people into factions. Factions, we're getting that. We're getting tribes again. What was the Romans' #1 strategy in war? Divide and conquer. Persuade them to see each other as the enemy and keep them screaming at each other so that they drown out all other sounds but their own stupidity. In this way, they will never reach consensus about anything and will be too distracted to notice the police state closing in on them until the final crushing curtain falls. This is how free people enslave themselves and allow tyrants to prevail. There will be more on how fear is being used against us coming up. But why is this fear bad? Why is this not a good kind of fear? Lies can be scary, but why is it bad? Why shouldn't I be afraid of things? Biblical example. Howbeit no man spake openly of him for fear of the Jews. For fear, they didn't say anything about Jesus. Because they were afraid. They shut up about the one thing they shouldn't have been shutting up about. For fear. Think about Peter, for example. Big, strong man, face of adversity, even stood up a little bit. Cut off Malchus' ear. But then what happened when he was around a bunch of other people? He didn't know Jesus anymore. The fear, the bad fear, got him. He was more afraid of them than he was of God in that moment. So in part 2, we'll be going over the fear of evil, the bad fear, what we're not supposed to be afraid of. That'll be next Thursday, after Gary's. Wednesday. Yeah, I forgot. This is Wednesdays now. But I'm not going to leave you on everything to be afraid of, so you can be fearless, because the Bible's got a lot of that too. Herein is our love made perfect, and that we may have boldness in the day of judgment. Because as he is, so are we in this world. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. We love him because he first loved us. Does that make sense? Be afraid of God, but if you're afraid of God, that doesn't mean you don't have perfect love in him. Because if you're afraid of God, like we were talking about earlier, the beginning of understanding, knowledge, and wisdom to more perfectly love God. And then you get, there is no fear in love. If you're not afraid to love God no matter what, then you are not tormented by the fear of what any man can do to you. And I'm saving the best verse about fear for next week or next Wednesday. But we love him because he first loved us. And 1 Peter, honor all men. Super easy, simple verse. Honor all men. Love the brotherhood. Fear God. And honor the king. Be fearless. And that is all for this week. The beginning of the Fear series.
Very good. Just a little intro.